Thank you, Megan, and good morning to all of you. I am delighted to be with you.
It's easy to miss things, to overlook things that are right in front of you. It's part of the human condition. Let's assume that you read through your insurance contract, and being the meticulously cautious, I want to know what I'm covered for kind of person that you are, I've no doubt that you would have. Could you have missed something important? Overlooked something amidst the Latin clauses and the different sections, and the different sections, subsections? Well, yes, no, maybe. Now, based on your answer and our aforementioned flawed human condition, what if I told you that Floyd's uniform has changed 4 times while I've been talking to you?
All right. How many of you have noticed that Floyd's uniform has changed? 1, I think. Good for you. So let me just play it again briefly. Now watch Floyd. Beige vest.
It's easy to miss things, to overlook things that are right in front of you. It's part of the human condition. Let's assume that you read through your insurance contract, and being the meticulously cautious, I want to know what I'm covered for kind of person that you are, I've no doubt that you would have.
I am trying to stop it.
Could you have missed something important?
My point in this clip is to say that you are normal people. You are intelligent people. Your intelligence is human intelligence. It is natural intelligence. What you do is not having a camera. Your eyes are not a video camera. Your brain is not a computer. What you do is you focus on what is most important, and in this case, who is speaking to you. And you leave the other parts behind. This just to show how good we are. Most of the times, we jump to conclusions that are correct. Computers go A, B, C, D very fast until they land at L, which is the right answer. We, normal people, we jump to conclusions. We see A, B, C, we see a pattern, and we jump. Most of the times we land on L, but sometimes we make a mistake and we end on M. So here is a man, normal, I'm sure smart man, who jumped to conclusions. Now, he recognized the shape of his car under the snow. That's 1. Second, he remembered where he parked it, or at least thought that he remembered, and so he jumped to conclusion. In this case, that conclusion turned up to be wrong. Now, the cognitive error that we talk about when we describe this kind of decision-making is representative. He judged by similarity. This car is similar to his car. This place of parking is similar to the one he remembered, and he jumped. most of the times we get it right. Sometimes, as you can see, we get it wrong. Can you move it then the next one? Yeah. See how intelligent we are. This toddler thinks like a scientist. He looks at what we know is a mirror, but to him it looks like a pane of glass. And so he says, there must be a boy on the other side of that pane. Let me find him. So he looks behind. He doesn't see it. He checks again. Then he makes some moves, and he has just figured out what a mirror is. And so again, we are intelligent people. Can you move it? Oops. Thank you. Here's a question to you. So think of a ladder with steps from 0 to 10. The top of that ladder, the top step, represents the best life that you can imagine for yourself, and the bottom one is the worst one. So just think for yourself, where do you stand right now? In studies in developed countries, like the US, what they found was that kind of U-shape, a pattern where well-being tends to decline from young adulthood and bottoms out at about mid-50s, and then it begins to go up. I am in the up portion of this U-curve, and I can tell you that that describes life very well. Now I let things slide. I let things flow. You know, somebody forgot to cite one of my articles. Big deal. Before, I might have even sent an email just politely suggesting that author read my article. No more. So the point that I'm making is what we really want is high life well-being. Now, financial well-being that we talk about a lot is necessary. It comes when we can meet current and future obligations and absorb financial setbacks and move forward towards goals like retirement income. Life well-being is beyond that. It is when we live satisfying lives full of meaning and purpose. So what I'm telling you is really something that you know, although you might not use the same words that I use. You are not wealth managers. You are not wealth advisors. You are well-being advisors. And I think about you as I think about physicians. Good physicians promote both health and well-being, you know that, and good financial advisors promote both wealth and well-being. And you are perhaps more a manager of investors than a manager of investments. And so, what is it that you do? A good physician treats an illness. A great physician treats the patient. You ask, You listen, truly listen. You empathize. You put yourself in your client's shoes. His values, her wants, his wants are different from yours, but you have to place yourself in their shoes. What is it that they want? Where does it hurt? Years ago, a financial advisor told me about a prospect and his wife. They said, look, before you start planning for us, you should know that we have a disabled son, and we want to make sure that he is taken care of after we are gone, okay? That is central. Now, in this case, the client said it, but in other cases, you have to implore, you have to ask to get to those points of pain. You diagnose, you educate, and you treat, and you do it again and again because your clients, like my students, sometimes don't get the lesson, and so you do it again. Some years ago, I was in my office on a long phone conversation, holding the receiver in my right hand, and at some point I moved it to my left and placed my right hand on my shoulder, and I could feel a bump. I moved my fingers around it. It has a bump with distinct edges. What could it be? A colleague of mine had a bump on his neck some months before, and not long ago, he was gone. So I called my physician at Kaiser, and I was told to come that afternoon. So it was reassuring for a moment on one side that somebody is going to look at it, and then it was scary. It must be something really bad. So when I saw the physician, he said, oh, that really is not serious at all. It is just an accumulation of fat under the skin, but it's better to take it out because these tend to expand. So I went to the surgeon, and I said, well, I understand that these kinds of bumps are not malignant. He said, looking at his computer, he said, well, we don't know. We will send it to the lab, and we'll find out. I felt my blood all accumulating in my toes. I left the office. I wanted to lie down in the corridor, but that would be unmanly. And so I went to the nurse's station. I sat on a chair. I lowered my body low enough until blood came back to my brain. Now, as it turned out, it was a different surgeon that operated on me a few weeks later. He explained what he was going to do. He assured me that the chances that it is malignant are close to zero. After that surgery in the evening, I didn't expect a call from him, but he called, and he told me that the sample came back from the lab, everything is okay. He explained to me how to change the dressing, and he sounded as if he has this entire evening to speak to me. Now, I imagine that those two surgeons are equally good with a knife. But what a difference. One may have treated the disease, the illness, but one treated the patient. And what is it? What difference is it? Huge difference in the kind of well-being that I have experienced. So we want to maximize our well-being, and wealth is only a way station to well-being. So what I'm saying to you, again, forgive me if I'm saying what is obvious to you, engage in conversations with your prospects or clients about well-being. Several years ago, just before COVID, I was about to speak at some conference for very wealthy people. I was sitting at dinner the evening before with a man who, we were just chatting, and he told me about his daughter. His daughter was interested in circus art. There's actually a college, perhaps more than one, that offer a major in circus art, like Cirque du Soleil. He sounded kind of disappointed with his daughter because she's not going to make a ton of money in that kind of work. Somehow, I don't know how, but the conversation moved such that he said, poor people on welfare, they just spend less, they just lower their standard of living to fit within that amount that they get, rather than get themselves off the sofa and get to work. I said, if I may, let me tell you about my family and my daughter. My older daughter is disabled by mental illness. And if she had to live on what she gets from Social Security, $800, $600 because we provide a house for her, she would be dead by now. So he asked, what is the diagnosis of your daughter? And I said, it is bipolar illness. And he said, this is what my daughter has been diagnosed with, but I am sticking my head in the sand. And I said, if I may, I think that you should take your head out of the sand and help your daughter. You can see the man is very wealthy, but his well-being is not. And he can do something about it. A financial advisor I know, some years ago, his son had a psychotic break. He knew of my family. He knew that my wife is a volunteer at NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. He was as shocked as we were, as lost as we were. He came with his wife. They sat with us. We shared with them what we know. That advisor now has many of his clients, people who either suffer, live with mental illness, or family member live in mental illness. And there are a lot of financial aspects to it, as you would know. A trust has to be made, a will has to be made, all has to be designed such that the kid is taken care of after the parents are gone. And so it is really important to find ways to explore people's well-being, asking questions, letting people speak. A lot of the time, those things are embarrassing a difficult marriage. But if you are going to be a good financial advisor, a good financial physician, that is what you have to do. And again, think about your comparative advantage. Robo-advisors do all the busy work. They design portfolios, they realize losses. What makes you unique to your clients is that emotional link that you create with them. So well-being, life well-being has many domains. Of course, finances, but also family and friends and health and work and education and religion and society. This is the cover of my book that Megan was kind to mention. It's coming out in April. Another time, years ago, I was speaking to financial advisors about saving and spending and more. After my talk, some advisors came, stood with me. They told me about the need to increase saving and reduce spending, about the danger of giving adult kids money without expecting or without demanding that money back, about widows who splurge irresponsibly when their husbands die. One stood aside, waiting until the others have left, and then she came to me and she said, "I started crying when you said it is better to give with a warm hand than a cold one." It turned out that she lent her son some $27,000 for school, and now that he graduated, she demanded that he pay back by the agreed-upon schedule. She thought that this way she is helping her son develop into a person with financial responsibility, but that son was broke now. She said he doesn't even have money to buy his girlfriend an engagement ring. And of course, that soured their relationship. Now, that woman had enough such that she could forgive that loan without imperiling her retirement and other financial goals. Well, my answer is obvious, and I hope that that is what she did that day. Because yes, she would have reduced some in her finances domain, but she would have gained in the family domain a lot more than she has sacrificed, and overall her well-being would be higher. This is me in 1969. I was 22, standing next to Nava, my 21-year-old bride. A few months before our wedding, my parents, that is in Israel, drove up to meet Nava's parents. We sat together for dinner, and after dinner, Nava and I were excused to go for a walk, and our parents sat down to business. Business meant deciding how much each pair of parents is going to give the new couple to start them on their way, down payment for an apartment. As I found out much later, Nava's mom said to her dad, "Whatever Meir's parents offer, we will meet. We will match that." And my parents were far from wealthy. Nava's parents had less, but they end up borrowing some of the money from relatives and providing it to them. That is giving with a warm hand. That is what I do with my 2 daughters. So it is an issue of how it is that you transfer wealth from generation to generation such that you enhance their well-being. Because the point is not to have that wealth grow and grow and grow if people are miserable. You really have to figure out ways to enhance well-being. And if you have children, and it is nice to have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, because at that point, you know, they are just lovely. Everything is open for them. But as you know, as they grow up, they show who they are, and navigating kids is not as easy as navigating a car. So some years ago, again, I was in Switzerland at a gathering of very wealthy families, people with family businesses, and I was going to speak about behavioral finance, but they let me sit in on a meeting of those families where they talked about their life and what they have learned. And a woman who was a medical researcher, her father or grandfather made a major invention that made them fabulously wealthy. But she pleaded with the audience, with the other families, not to press their children into their business. It might work for them, but not always. And so she said, make your wealth help for the kids. Don't make them as golden handcuffs. Another man, a father, described a daughter who is not interested in academic studies. She didn't want to go to college. He was distressed, but earlier in the day, there was a speaker who talked about art as an investment. And it gave him an idea. His daughter loves art. What if he establishes a gallery and put her in charge? That gallery might make money or not. The family has tons of money, but it is going to provide his daughter with well-being. He had tears in his eyes as he described it. And then there were 2 cousins who managed a ceramic factory, and they described how 2 other cousins who inherited with them just spend their life partying. It is sad, it is sad when people fail to develop a vocation, something that will hold their attention, work that is more than a paycheck. But what can you do? And so what you do, what I do, is help our kids develop that passion for something that is going to carry them through life. And so we are normal, and normal people are generally normal smart, sometimes normal foolish, generally normal knowledgeable, but sometimes normal ignorant. But the nice thing about them, and nice thing about us, is that we can learn and we can increase the ratio of smart to foolish and knowledgeable to ignorant. Again, what do we talk about when we talk about normal? Why is it that I can say without hesitation that you are normal and so am I. I check what you want. Do you want to avoid poverty? Do you want prospects for riches? Not billions, just a bit more than you have now. Do you want to nurture your children and stay true to your values? The answer is yes. Do you use shortcuts, like that representative shortcut that I described of the man with the car in the snow, and sometimes commit representativeness errors? Are you sometimes exceedingly angry? And you know the advice that we got from our parents, very good advice. When you're angry, count till 10 before you open your mouth. There are three parts to well-being, to life well-being. Experience well-being, that is, how do you feel right now, happy or sad? Evaluative well-being, which is what I described earlier, where you have to evaluate your own life, compare it to where you have been, compare it to your aspirations. And meaning. Does life have meaning for you? So I'm going to give a gift to my beloved, and I wonder whether it is going to be a red rose or $10. That is the price of that rose. I'm a rational man who knows a bit of finance. So here's my thinking. A rose has no utilitarian benefits. My beloved cannot eat or drink it. Actually, it's quite a nuisance. She'll have to look for a vase to put it in. After a few days, the petals will drop, and she will toss it out. Now, $10 are not a rose by any other name. $10 she can put in her savings account, the one that will pay for nursing home when she's old. And if she wants to spend it now, what do I know of her utility function, as we rational economists call it? Maybe what will maximize her utility is a frying pan. Well, we all know that this kind of thinking may be rational, but it's pretty stupid. If I were to actually follow that script, surely I would not be her beloved. Because we know that while roses have no utilitarian benefits, they have a lot of expressive and emotional benefits. A rose says, I love you. A rose says, I am a thoughtful man. You'll do well to marry me. All products and services have those three kinds of benefits: utilitarian, the money part, expressive, and emotional. This applies to financial products, and this applies to financial services, your services. So think about finances. I need money for utilitarian benefits, food and shelter, but it also has expressive benefits. It says to me and to others that I'm financially secure. I don't stand in line for food, and it gives me freedom from fear. And the domain of finance, as I said, and as you know, is a special place. Not only is well-being higher when people have more money, but it underlies well-being in all other domains. We need money to pay for education. We need money to pay for health. Even religion. I found this wonderful quote from Dechtman, who used to be a monk and now he's a financial advisor. He found out when his community went bankrupt that being a monk with no money does not work. Family, supporting the family, saying I am a responsible parent, I share love with my family. Family is the most frequently mentioned source of meaning, and it is about parents and children and dating and marriage and divorce and widowhood. and adult children, grandparents, siblings, and pets. Some people describe themselves as pets' parents. Those of us who don't care for pets, and I'm confessing that I'm one, find it difficult to comprehend, but I surely can put myself in the shoes of people I know who really treat their pets and think of their pets as being members of their family. Health, again, there's no life if there's no health. Work, yes, we earn money, but also have a sense of accomplishment and camaraderie. Work, here's a nurse who says, no words can actually describe the absolute amazing feeling it takes to deliver a new life into the world. She has meaning in her work and in her life. Education, similarly. Now, students realized when COVID came that school is about more than just academics. There is a social part, there is the camaraderie that comes with it, and that did not work over Zoom. And there is another part to education that I write about, and that is that competitive nature of competing for a place in an Ivy League college. And it is getting to be really sad. I live in Cupertino, South Bay, Silicon Valley, lots of families who really strive to place their kids in Ivy League universities, sometimes with tragic consequences, rarely, but it is sad to see how sometimes that push ends up very poorly. So again, you are a financial physician and you enhance their clients' well-being, and in the process, you enhance your own. So an advisor told me about a woman who made enough money to retire at 60, but she grew up poor and she was afraid of a life at the end when she spends too much money, as he described it, living in a box, eating cat food. So that advisor persuaded her to take from her wealth $2.5 million. The woman was in her 90s. $2.5 million, as well as real estate that provided rents. In that process, that advisor enhanced his client's well-being, and in the process, his own well-being, knowing that he has done good for that woman. That is something that I'm sure you feel as well. That is how I feel as a teacher when I get my lessons through, when I make my students think, when they reach reasonable conclusions. That is a satisfaction for them, and it is a satisfaction for me. And as I said, lots of robo-advisors are now available. I'm, in fact, an advisor to one, Wealthfront. But you cannot compete with them on price. You cannot compete with them on those generic services of harvesting losses, even creating portfolios, indexes that are built on individual stocks rather than an index fund. Robo-advisors cannot be well-being advisors. For that, you need that personal touch, that personal connection that I'm talking about. This is your comparative advantage. And if you look at it and you think about those statistics, how is it that people choose a financial advisor? 59% come from referrals, and the other sources are relatively small. And people will refer you or refer their prospects to you because you know your stuff in finances, sure. But that knowledge is reasonably common. What matters, just like with my story about the physician, that surgeon, is that personal connection, that sense that if you are in a doctor's office and the doctor says, take off your shirt, you know that it's not because he or she enjoys to see your chest or back. It is because there is some medical need to check your heart or to check whatever was on the skin. Metaphorically, that is what you are doing when you talk with your clients about aspects of family and work and health and so on. You're not doing it for idle curiosity. You're doing that because all of them have important financial aspects to them. Wills, trusts, other questions, how to divide an inheritance. And you don't need to be a psychologist for that. I'm not a psychologist, I'm an economist. You need to act as a good friend. The difference between a friend and an acquaintance is that a friend knows something about you that are private, that are perhaps painful. But now that you know that, and he knows that you know that, you are friends. You are true friends rather than just acquaintance who share watching a football game or something like that. What are the components of trust in financial advising? The emotional component makes up more than half of that. When clients feel valued and respected, and their objectives and feelings are understood. And life well-being is constrained by circumstances. You know, I mentioned mine with a disabled child. All families have points of pain. No family, I think, has all its domain in perfect shape. And so there was a touching, sad story of a journalist whose 14-year-old daughter died of cancer. How can I speak about her in the past tense, she said. But she also has a younger daughter, and that younger daughter has to develop a life of her own, and she has to have her parents help her do that. So what we do is move well-being from one domain to another. Use well-being in one domain for healing injuries to others. So when my wife and I noticed that something is not quite right with our older daughter, but we didn't know what it was, we took her to psychologists, and they said some things about, that was years ago, about family dynamics, blah, blah, and how we are perfectionist parents, and so on. It seemed like the only question yet to be answered was whether blame lies with Nava or with me. And sadly, we let it seep into our marriage. Fortunately, we managed to overcome that, and our marriage is solid. But it is the case that we are fortunate in the domain of finances, such that we can help our daughter without draining assets, without draining money that we need for ourselves. And we are even more fortunate in the domain of family because our older daughters, Barbara's younger sister, Ruth, truly loves and supports her. And so we use remedies from the finances domain, from the family domain, to heal the pain in another part of that family domain. We are fortunate to be able to buy a house for her where she lives, and she is independent. And my wife, Nava, is a volunteer at NAMI and helped so many people and families. And aging brings frailty, but what we do is we eventually accept us as we are. Okay, we are not going to be the richest man in the town, let alone the richest man in the country, but so what? And so I quote someone who is 68 who says, uncertainties that affected his life when young are now gone. So let me kind of end by bringing back the main points of my talk. Years ago, I was going to speak in a conference, and the organizer asked me to refer to the people, advisors, not as financial advisors, but as wealth managers. I say you are well-being managers or well-being advisors. You are financial physicians, and you are promoting both wealth and well-being, and you are managing both investments and investors. Thank you all very much. I'd be delighted to have questions, comments, shared experiences. Who is going to be first?
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was outstanding. I have found myself throughout my career being distracted by the data and analytics versus the emotions. And I was curious if you have had any questions that have been disproportional in maybe getting clients to move from a more data and analytical meeting into what are you really after? What are some well-being questions that you would recommend?
Well, typical clients to this very day, when you say financial advisors, they say, show me what kind of portfolios. Maybe beat the market for me. And so one thing to say is, think of the image of a physician. That is, you expect a physician to know his or her science, to be on the frontier of knowledge in medicine. And you can expect, and I am one on the frontier of knowledge of finances. I will put you on an efficient frontier. I will design a plan for you that is going to take you to your goals. But you can say, I am also, like a physician, what I'm trying to do is to improve your life, to help you live better. And it might come as a surprise to them because they don't think of you as that. And you have to do it gradually because they might feel like you're about to ask them to take off that metaphorical shirt. And so you have to ask them. And you can say, you have kids. If they're college age, how are they doing? Lots of people who are wealthy enough to have enough money to put the kid in an Ivy League and pay full fare, but the kid doesn't even want to go to community college. So you have to empathize with that, and where you can, first empathize. That is, and then you have to move on if you have some advice. And sharing some of your struggles, points of pain, might not come easily to you. But I think that if you can do that, that is true friendship, and that is true service. So our younger daughter, she is, by education, an electronics technician, although where she worked last, she was promoted to engineer because she does the work of an engineer, but she didn't want to go to college. She didn't care about writing papers on history. Eventually, Nava mostly nudged her into DeVry College, where she got a degree, an associate degree. And she's doing fabulously and happily married. That is, the story of many, many parents. This thing of my son goes to Harvard and my daughter goes to Yale, that kind of bragging takes you nowhere. You really have to explore where the pain is and see if you can help find medicine for that pain. Say it again? Oh, my book is coming out in April, but forgive me for being so forward. You can pre-order on Amazon right now. Yeah, I look forward to it. I really found it fascinating. This is not stuff that people in finance read. I read a lot of stuff by sociologists, for example, and they describe real families. And so you have people who specialize in the science of well-being, and they do studies about issues that contribute to detract from well-being. But then there are stories that you will find in places like newspapers, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, that I match to them to give you a sense of what it is, where you can actually put yourself in the shoes of another person. That is really that empathy, the true empathy that comes. And a lot of that really is things that I've learned over the years from people like you, financial advisors who actually work with people. You don't work in the back office doing the numbers. You do the numbers, all right? But you also serve as that financial physician. Other questions? Comments? Experiences? I'm not in the habit of calling on my students.
Mine was just a comment, and it's a powerful reminder, your presentation today, of the ability we have to truly change people's lives. People's financial situations are often the most private area of their lives. And so when they trust us with that, they can trust us with much more that can help them with their healing. The examples you gave today about family, your family, other people's families, were just a powerful reminder. I wanted to say the other thing, because I'm on this journey, and that gentleman over there touched upon it, which is changing the mindset from we are the knowledgeable ones that are going to fix all their problems into that consultative, deeper understanding and caring, not only for the growth of our practice and the business reasons, but also the ability to truly help people and change lives, as well as our own. So it was more of a comment to the power of your presentation today. And also a question for you, which is, where do you find the balance between immediately wanting to jump in with solutions, because that's what we do,
Yeah.
and to truly be there to listen, to understand, and help our clients and prospects' families be heard?
Thank you for the comment first. And I think that it is about helping clients reach well-being and helping you reach well-being, because what you really get satisfaction from, what I get satisfaction from as a teacher, is helping people, but in the process, I also enjoy high well-being. In terms of the balance, I think that, again, it is important to tell people what they already know, that money is essential for well-being, but it is not all of it. If you can tell stories from your own life or from the life of people that you know, that is best. And it is really a process of just think about friendship and how friendship forms. You know, you meet someone, maybe at school, maybe even as a child, your first acquaintances, you know, you say, what kind of work do you do, and so on. And eventually, if it looks like somebody you would like to have as a friend, not just an acquaintance, you speak to them about things that are really important to you. And, you know, when I mention to people that I know mental illness from my family, more often than not, they will say, you know, I know it from my family as well, or I know it from a family of a friend. Or it is not mental illness. In our case, it is physical illness, cancer that is now in remission, but God knows it might come back. And when you open up this way, you really create a bond that is not easily broken, you know. And if somebody says, listen, all I want you to do is beat the market and don't get beyond that, I think that it is perfectly okay to point him down the street and say, here's an advisor who can promise you that they are going to make you rich by some scam. And you know, not everyone is going to be the right kind of client for you, and you should feel free to turn down some clients. Now, I know early on in your career you didn't feel comfortable doing that. Here's a person who comes with $3 million. But as you advance, as you age, as I age, you know, you find that, hey, life is too short to deal with jerks. And so you say politely that this is not something that you can do, beat the market by some great margin, but I'm here to help you have the financial security that you need for yourself and for your family, and help you enhance your well-being. Yes?
Do you have any statistics, or can you speak to, with regard to our empathic listening, the emotional connections, males versus females?
You know, they say that women are more empathetic than men, and it is probably so. And women are better at friendship than men. Men tend to be friends, kind of, as somebody described, shoulder to shoulder, sitting together in a stadium, for example, watching a ball game or building something together. Women are comfortable face to face, speaking about those issues that really matter. But I'm a man, and I have learned empathy. You know, people can learn. I'm shy by nature, but here I am speaking to many people. I have learned to overcome my shyness, and I've come to be able to develop that sense of empathy, to pause before I jump to say, here's what you should do. You know, because there are many books and so on, you know, they say, what most important is marriage or family or whatever it is. All of these are elements, and there's no magic solution. There's no one domain that is central other than finances that underlie them. And so you just have to, you know, somebody responding to an article said, stop trying to make men like women. I say, you don't have to be a man who is a woman, but you can learn some skills that perhaps women are better at naturally, but you can learn. Oh, I think that my time is up. It was wonderful, wonderful to speak with all of you.